What's going on, everybody? It's your observant lineman, Uche Waneri, 7-year NFL vet, part of the smartest group of players on the football field, the offensive line. Here to bring you some more in the noteworthy news notes of the day in the NFL. Now, just to get caught up a little bit, I'm sure most of you all know, Tom Brady has again defeated Father Time and signed a 2-year extension with the New England Patriots. That's good for him. Tom Brady has continued to show, obviously, his excellence on the football field. And while, personally, Patriots, cheaters, I can't help but congratulate old man Brady for getting it done, getting another deal, showing that he still has what it takes to continue and to bring excellence to the Patriots organization. Now, on the other side of that, you also have a couple of players who have been involved in holdouts, one of which is Jaguars defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, my Nigerian brother. Niger. Yannick just recently ended his holdout and reported to Jaguars camp. Right now, they're in Baltimore practicing with the Ravens. He ended that holdout, stated that he's not mad about not getting a new deal, but he is definitely aware of his value as a player and will seek to cash in on that value when the time is right. Can't blame him for that. That's the way you want to go about it when you're trying to get paid. He tried to force their hand, didn't work, so he cut his losses and got back to the game of football. Now, on the other end, obviously, with the Dallas Cowboys, see I got the shirt on when I played my time there in Dallas, still have that dry fit. The Cowboys have Ezekiel Elliott, who is right now in the middle of a holdout himself, and through his representatives has stated that he won't be playing in the 2019 season if he doesn't get a new contract. Now, as a player in the NFL, as somebody who played a long time and has seen these kind of scenarios play out, it's a double-edged sword for players. Obviously, you are aware that you are a highly productive player on the team. You're aware that you are one of the core members of the team, one of the top producers for the team, and you want to be compensated as such. Now, Ezekiel Elliott, whether we want to call him an elite level running back or not, that's up for discussion, and that's not something that I'm going to get into right now. But obviously, he has been an important cog in the machine that the Cowboys are trying to run towards Super Bowl glory. Now, as a player, I can respect what he's doing. I really can. You only have so much time on that field. And these teams are cutthroat when it comes to their loyalty to players. You see it all the time. Guys who have given everything they have to their teams only to be released and let go with little to no respect given, little to no acknowledgement of what they've brought to the franchise. And that's not just with, your marquee players. That's with guys who were signed as free agents. That's for undrafted players. That's for young players who are trying to make their way in the league. They've routinely been, let go as numbers. It's a numbers thing. You hear that all the time with teams. Oh, it was a numbers game. We'd love to keep them, but it's a numbers thing. And, that's the nature of the business. We understand that. But to a degree, it's a little bit hypocritical for a team to ask a player to give everything he has to a team with no guarantees on the back end that he will be compensated or held as a core member of the team for the foreseeable future. Now, in what Ezekiel Elliott's doing, I feel like if he was going to pick a time to do it, it would be this time. He's running on the last year, I think, of his rookie contract. And while we all know that there will be a payday for him in the future, he's looking to secure that now rather than later, because you never know what happens. This football season could be, it could be a bad season for the Cowboys. It could be an injury-filled season for Ezekiel. Those are risks that are on the table from day one. The moment you set foot in training camp, you're in danger of being injured. You're in danger of underperforming. And while we assume that we've trained and we've polished our game enough to where we won't have to worry about some of those issues, you never know what happens. How many players have had down seasons with no real explanation as to why? So Ezekiel's trying to get his money up front. I feel you, Zeke. You want to push as much as you can to try and get it, but at the same time, you don't want to be a distraction to your team. Now, as a player, we dealt with this when I was in Jacksonville. Maurice Jones-Drew held out for a portion of the football, year. And when I say the football year, I mean OTAs, training camp. He held out through a lot of those things to try and force the Jaguars into giving him a new deal. Now, that didn't work in his case, but again, you have to be able to try and get the amount of money you can when you can, because these teams have no loyalty to these players. They have no loyalty whatsoever, and a player should not assume that because you've been on the team for a long time, that team actually has loyalty towards you, because the first opportunity that your production slips and they're able to justify releasing you in order to give another player who they deem as more worthy an opportunity at your position for a far discounted price, they will do it. That's something that will be done, and it's happened time and time again in the NFL. Now, at the end of the day, there's a couple of scenarios that can play out. And we all see how Le'Veon Bell's situation played out with the Steelers last year. Not only did they lose an elite talent on the field, but there was also a bit of animosity and a bit of hard feelings that were left in the wake of that holdout, because now you have a team that is in flux because there's all kinds of drama going on at the wide receiver spot with Antonio Brown, at the quarterback position with Ben Roethlisberger, and some players questioning his leadership abilities. But in a nutshell, last season for the Steelers was a very drama-filled one, and the catalyst of that was Le'Veon Bell's holdout. Now, he ends up getting paid, but now he's a year out of football. He's a year older, maybe not a year more worn than he was had he played that season. But, you have a player who you're not so sure what he's going to bring to the table because he hasn't been in the full contact arena in 12 months. So it will be interesting to see if there is going to be any kind of injury situations that he has to deal with this season because of that. Or there's going to be some rust that has to be knocked off. Maybe, going into play with the Jets. Now he's in a different, slightly different scheme. Is it going to be something that he's compatible with? Are they going to use him in the same kind of ways that the Steelers tried to use him? Or are they going to try and take a different approach that maybe doesn't work out so well for the team in the end? And now you're stuck in a bad situation where you got a guy who has a huge contract and is maybe not so compatible with your team, maybe doesn't have the same kind of chemistry that he had in Pittsburgh. And at the end of the day, that can be a situation that costs him money and costs the team wins. You never know, but we'll see. That's all, speculation, obviously, but these are things that happen in the NFL if you look at the history of it. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, again, as a player, I'm all for you trying to get the money that you think you're worth because, again, there's no loyalty in this sport when it comes to, players putting themselves on the line day in and day out. Right now, players are in training camp, and, training camp is that's the forging of gridiron warriors through fire. It's the true forging of players through fire because any vet will tell you that, 24 hours before training camp starts, there's a lot of butterflies, there's a lot of anxiety because it's almost as if you're going to be going through a form of torture to get ready for the football season. It's a long, drawn-out process. There's a lot of physicality involved, obviously. And then on top of that, when your body is at a state of shock, at a state of exhaustion, then you start playing preseason games. And we all know how NFL players feel about preseason. The preseason is, by and large, the most useless part of the NFL season when it comes to veteran players. Now, I understand the significance of it for players who are young. When you're trying to evaluate players, you're trying to figure out who's going to be part of that core 53-man roster. you know, you want to be able to, as a general manager, you want to be able to have the best lineup in there that you can have. But at the same time, you don't want to be in a situation where you have, you know, veteran players, core players, contributors, major top talent on your team being injured because they are in for one play too long or one series too long. These are things that can happen. These are things that have happened. It brings me back to my, I think this was what, 2010 or 2011 year in Jacksonville, when, you know, it was really a year that a lot of players on that team would like to forget. We had Mike Mularkey as our head coach, and he was one of those coaches that loved to have you in full pads almost every practice that you go, and he liked to keep his starters out there as long as he possibly could in the preseason. Well, we're in game 4 of the preseason on our second drive of the game against the Atlanta Falcons, a drive that means nothing, a drive that's useless. And on the second play of that drive, what happens? High ankle sprain. High ankle sprain on a basic outside run. As I'm trying to get up to the linebacker, my back ankle, the back of my ankle gets clipped, gets rolled up on, and now I have to come out of the game and I have to go get treatment. I have to show up in the morning at the stadium at 5:30 a.m. to get treatment on an ankle that was hurt for basically no reason at all. And those are situations that can, you know, alter the course of some players' futures. Luckily, I was able to recover from that. Luckily, I was able to go on and have a pretty good season. But still, the fact remains is that the preseason is something that's almost, you know, completely useless in terms of getting better as a player and maintaining maintaining the level of play and polishing your craft. It's just not something that you're going to get done necessarily in the preseason, especially when you're in the 4th game, and it's basically just an evaluation game for the last pickup spots on the roster. So, you know, that'll be something we'll get into. I'll do another video about training camp and kind of get more into it, get into the nitty gritty, because man, training camp, whoo, I could call up 10 guys right now and we could have an hour-long conversation about training camp. But that'll be the next video that I get into, or the next thing that I talk about in the next video will be training camp and the experiences that I've had as a player and general misconceptions about what training camp really means for players in the NFL. So please hit that like button, subscribe. Thanks for joining me on this second video on the Observant Lineman. I'm Uche Waneri, and I'll holla at ya.